What a great show as a topic today. You know, it's most people don't know that we've got way more than six senses, mate. And the ethmoid organ is our magnicity organ. It's got beautiful festoonness with our own body's lodestone crystal of magnetite and things, which is highly magnetic. So most really don't know about the ethmoid organ. So something which I did when I was studying whole brain functioning at the university was to put taxonomy together of all our sensory-motor complex, and probably one of the finest, I'd say, wherever anything is collected like this. But anyway, today I think we could just sit back just for a second a little. Wouldn't it be beautiful? But the core idea relative that you'd be holding on to where this show is how your ethmoid is many things just beyond smell. Collecting, of course, a JC quanta, which is the tiny smallest piece of a photon, and it's acting as a vestibular stabilizer, this ethmoid organ, you see. It assists cause vestibular stabilization within itself. It helps hold on to a trained thought, for instance, whilst you could have been entertaining other ideas and things, you see. So the ethmoid, which we could be talking just a bit about, it's an anchoring point where you've got this service governor within yourself, and this is assisting to help run where the nerves are. And even before any action potential is, you have this static B field. And the vestibular sense is regulating information that comes from the ethmoid. All right. So in that anatomy, you've got key structures, of course. The dura mater is a semiconductive substance, and the falx cerebri, which pass between the left and the right hemisphere of your brain, attaching anteriorly to the crista galli. So this crista galli, you've got to have a look at it. It's quite beautiful. It's a very beautiful plate of bone, of course, specialized to dampen internal noise. Yeah. So it's protecting consciousness. It's a wedge-shaped, upward projecting ridge-like shape, which is really a landmark for the anterior skull base, where you're looking at this. The septum pellicidum, which is part of your alliesthetic sense, meaning, your sense of feeling good or not feeling too good. That's a sense called your alliesthetic sense. And the septum pellicidum is very important in the role that this plays to cause your frontal cortex to be active and you be in more of a whole brain functioning state. So it's a very thin double membrane between the corpus callosum and the fornix, which is helping separate lateral ventricles there, which participate in hemisphere synchronization, you see. So you're getting a greater amplitude of magnicity where the body is. So you've got a bit of a sensing transduction, and this crystal galli senses very fine with vibration where your body is, the fluid, the gases. It contributes to your alliesthetic sense, which is like also engaging like chemical, because you can imagine fragrance, very micronutrient, which has total access to the nerve and the brain. So you've got this ethmoid organ, which you should look to see where this is, and the it's a transducer reducing skull noise like a baffle sort of thing, which so that magnetic energy and resonance are going to be working better for you. So where your voice resonance is, or anyone else's, you've got an echolocation, and can be giving you a three-dimensional imaging of what's behind the sound. Because only a certain shape and things, and what have you, is behind sound itself. So the voice, of course, is a beautiful resonance where your ethmoid organ is, which is festooned, as we're talking, with this body's own lodestone crystal magnetite, and you've got nasal spaces which contribute to your voice resonance, of course, and the sound quality. So the surface area and all of this is through connective tissue and the nocioceptive sensations and things, which is part of the alliesthetic sense of everything you're feeling, like the warmth, for instance, or what humidity, more or less, might there be where the nasal cavity is, or and the effect of all of that has an echolocation itself, which somebody could be picking up and be able to read behind the scene, like doing a body reading. So you've adapted filtering where it's a mechanosensory role is your ethmoid organ, this organ of magnicity, and its adaptiveness where it's acting as a filter which cancels also out self-generated internal noise. You've got mechanosensory processing here, which is tied to the frontal cortex function, you see. So how about looking at, cancelling out your internal body chatter, you see, and the attention, more or less, that you have ever trained more to be focused where you are with what you are holding at hand. And so you've got vestibular connection to everything, of course. In the ectoderm stage, the vestibular senses form first, as from all the other senses. And it's in the vestibular apparatus conceptually links, of course, to your septum pellicidum, forward and back, of course, you move toward what's pleasant and you move away from what's not. Okay. So relay is very fine vibration and vestibular sense for direction, orientation. Your static magnetic field and dynamic nerve is a current which is sensed by the vestibular sense. And giving information, of course, is your ethmoid organ. So you've got close where you've got your vestibular sense, not too far away, right where this is. You've got a crista ampullae, which is the semicircular canal sensing angular acceleration to deceleration. And how this goes on where your voice is or your shapedness of things. So the vestibular sense is regulating your tone, for instance, and posture, for instance, which we could talk about now. How does this influence everything, sort of? And so your eye orientation and reflexes, your muscle tone, all of this is coordinated where the brainstem and cerebellum is for spatial integration, and the vestibular sense is meta, meaning over the top of all of this. And how are you using this in your language and eye awareness and whole brain functioning is key. So magnoreceptivity, that's, receptiveness to magnetic fields. You can see in cryptochrome, of course, you've got body magnetic sensitive material like in the ethmoid eye and the eyes, and cryptochrome gene protein is encoded through various parts of the body. You've got photoreceptive types of integral conditions which are going on, which is ultradian and circadian types of entrainment. So cytochrome, like we're just pointing out, is really engaged where you've got cellular rhythm and growth and DNA repair, and you've really got, of course, a disease association where you've got these cry sorts of variants and things. But however, you, of course, on a level of life colloid transmutation, where any molecular note might be, I think mentioning, of course, which endogenous opiates like endorphins and kephalins and opiates all is acting as a secondary nervous system, and this is part of your alliesthetic system. And so kinetin which is really a small molecule, cytokinetin, which is anti-aging molecules and things, are all sensed, by this pellicidum, septum pellicidum, and getting information from everywhere else, that's gathered, you see. So the ethmoid does an array of things, far more for your body than just assisting collect necessarily a JC quanta from the vacuum, which it does also. It's acting as a vestibular stabilizer for your random phoneme generator. You've got channels below, and what comes out that puts things together is your random phoneme generator. And so you've got channels below where this is that cause those words to be chosen where this is. And so you've got one thought, and it could be like a bit of a whale, yet other things are also as thoughts being entertained at the same time, see. So the ethmoid is anchoring point where it's like acting as a servo governor where you've got this in-between forces running nerve. And before an action potential is ever sent off, you've got several seconds, of course, you've got a readiness potential that's sent along the nerve fibre itself, which is this duramater and things which we're talking about. So the ethmoid applies a whole set of connectedness through the alloesthetic sense of connecting to the duramater and passing between the left and right cerebral hemisphere, you see. So it's incredible structure right there in the middle, behind the back of your nose, and it's an incredible structure, the cristae gully, which is a very fine plate of bone, and it's specialised, and it dampens all the internal noises, Lukey. Okay. And so that bone is so important because otherwise, whatever interference where consciousness is, basically, this is, of course, that assists to cause stabilise this. It's a fine bone sense of vibration, and the fluids of your body and gases all direct the conditioning, which is sensed and is attested to, of course, where fragrance is. You've got micronutrient, which really goes up into your brain. And you've got zinc and copper and rhodium, osmium, and ruthenium, and all these, a noble element which is gets up into the brain through fragrance. So the cristae, which is very unique in respect to it contributing to the sense of alloesthetics, so it's really serving critical attachment points where consciousness is itself, of course, also structurally. The falx cerebri in your brain is a dividing membrane made up out of this semiconductive substance, you see. It's separating your olfactory bulbs, and this is sort of really acting ever more anatomically and physiologically. It's a great landmark for your anterior skull base, like we were saying. So you can imagine an apparatus that's really connecting your septal pellicidum, which is your sensation of pleasure and bliss, and it's a complete sea, just like you'd imagine around Saturn, of a beautiful, very fine vibration between the hemisphere and perfectly relaying this out where the body is beyond, where the vestibular sense is. You've got this sense of direction, you've got this turning things. That's right, turning. Things can get more up or down, that's vestibular. Or things I'm able to be moved forward or backward, that's vestibular. And suspended, so this is vestibular, you see. So the direction of your static and B field and dynamic current, your nerve action potential is sensed and being sensed, and is a transform of synapse, you see, as a waveform. So we can see how the cristae is really beautiful wedge-shaped upward projected bony ridge where the ethmoid bone is in the skull. And you're looking at this and it's gorgeous because it's serving as an attachment point like we talked about, and it's a vibration dampening, it's noise, interior for your falx cerebri. This membrane really is what we're talking about. Yes, it's made up out of semiconductive lipid material, and so it's separating the hemispheres where the midline is and anterior to your cranial fossa, which, if you look into anatomy a little, it's possible really to get a good idea about this, but I'm doing what I can to give you some pictures. So the ethmoid, which is behind the back of your nose there, is serving multiple function. It really is a story which is including a role of sensation. You've got, of course, fragrances, chemical, and taste. You've got fluids, which is alloesthetic sense, which is providing a specific modulation of this and giving you structural support for workingness of the body. And so you're relating right now to a sense of how hydratedness might the body be, and your sense of its temperature. So this warmth and humidification, where molecule is in your body and where the external environment is, and its contributedness, that temperature change in things that go on, flows over these cells, endothelial cells. So your voice and its resonance, all this could be read out perfectly as you're trained. So a Phoenix physician practices protecting your brain, of course, by acting whatever the component is in your skull frame for the perfect resumed sort of transducing going on. You've got magnetic energy, which is being enhanced, and you can see how gorgeous this is, reducing the noise in the skull. So it's acting like a baffle, which has a good resonant property. So you've got 6 senses, of course, more than that actually. Yes, you do. So the ethmoid is another sense, of course, which is your sense of magnicity. That's air cells contribute to the resonance and sound where the quality of the voice is, and increasing vibratedness and connection over the surface area, which gives you a nociceptive sensation. And the connection of this tissue conducting all of this is sensed. And your voice and the nasal cavity warmth and its humidity and everything, everybody can hear where the vibratedness is and where the echolocation. And so you're able to pick out things from behind. Yes. Okay. So if you're imagining that you've got a condition which can cancel out all the body chatter and internalness, and you've got this ethmoid which is assisting you where the system is functioning. Of course, you've got this adaptive filtration, and it's cancelling out the self-generated noise where you are. So you're looking at this, which really is your mechanosensory processing. It's this which is reading this extraneous vibration. So how good is this in between the hemisphere of fractal more of your brain and connecting all of this where your frontal cortex is. So system is functioning, of course, where you've got this adaptive filtering and cancelling self-generated noise and mechanosensory processing. So anointedness, it's really a good, excellent choice of establishing where someone's values or their feeling is and their belief, and what's being put in before in your precognitive conditioning. So your meninges and the falx cerebri all are connecting through connective tissue directly where this is your falx cerebri, where a crescent-shaped projection is. And keep in mind that you've got semiconductive flow along the outside myelin sheathing, you see. And so you've got this bone that is connected in the ethmoid. It's a wedge shape, and it's just connected really beautifully to this meningeal dura mater, and it's passing between the two cerebral hemispheres. You can see it's attached anteriorly. You've got this crystal gully and the ethmoid bone, and you've got this frontal crest and frontal bones. Okay. So it's tissue we're bringing up, which is directly related, of course, to the septal pelliccidum and the window between the lakes that you have between your hemispheres, which this organ, the septum pellicum, is sitting between the middle. I mean, it's switching off the amygdala and switching off aversion, and it turns on pleasantry and interest is what's activating this. And if it's not activated, then if it's switched off, your amygdala function is basic, you see. So they're two separate systems. And so what happens is somebody's younger, of course, there's an impact, of course, on bones and things. And how does this affect you as you age? Of course, the deterioration of cystic fibrotic types of condition in the life colloid terrain is something else. Of course, the close by organ that you have here is this crista ampulla, which is located more where your semicircular canals are, a bit further away, but close by or connected by the connective tissue and nerve force feeding information to the vestibular sense. So you've got a detectedness of angular acceleration and deceleration, you see. And the crista here is related to more aerobic types of oxidation also. And this is all really being sensed perfectly, Lukey. So you've got relayed information going from these apparatus to your thalamus. And keep in mind, of course, it's an anchored function where the connective tissue is in the structure, and what you've got where a functional plasticity is to be able to hold on to a thought, whilst you could have had, entrained thinking that was more in opposite directedness. Yet you're looking at a mechanism which mechanically is stabilizing motor movement and is within this your cognitive process and things. So it's stabilizing static and magnetic dynamic current strength where magnicity is. This is a base ability you and I have to hold a train of thought. The ethmoid organ is within the brain's cranial cavity and providing this structural support where behavior is. It's a tissue organ connectedness where yours and my feeling is about I and what's foreign, for instance, in the surrounding membrane is sensing of this. So the falx located where this unique anatomical indirected connected durameter is, it's beautiful because you've got the septum pellicum that located right here, and its very thin double-layered triangular membrane is see-through, most see-through tissue of the body. And it's a brain midline. It extends between the corpus callosum, which is a bundle of fibre, of course, which connects both of the hemispheres together. And the fornix is a primary role to separate all of this. It's the anterior horn of this and the left and right lateral ventricles of your nose. So it's a part of the brain's ventricular system. So you can see how this beautifully assisting your hemisphere synchronization. And the improved amplitude, of course, picked up where a sensation is, which is assisting flow across the corpus callosum, you see. And so it's your septal pellicum, which assisting with this, is turning things on for this to occur or not. And so looking at the septal pellicum directly attached to the underside of the corpus callosum, you've got this, to keep in mind, of course, this same membrane semiconductive connective tissue to the durafold, which originates more where the crista galli is of your ethmoid organ. So another sense which we've been talking about, of course, is the vestibular sense, which is above and over the top of this other sense just here. But it's all be formed where the connective tissue is in the ectoderm stage before mesoderm, meaning your body and everything else gets formed. So the vestibular sense is your sense of locatedness, and if you're thinking about where this is, sort of in the inner ear, responsible for balance and spatial orientation, it's likely, of course, that if you're looking at this, you've got ethmoid body's own lodestone crystal, of course, right present here. You've got crystals like that are connecting magnetic to the north, and in a region generally associated with the sense of fragrance and things, and the chemistry of smell and sensation could have only been perhaps, and yet where colloidal chemistry is, you've got fluids of the nasal cavity, and the ethmoid organ is picking up these things, and of course it picks up the amperage where nerve force is through connected tissue directly in a semiconductive tissue system. So there's a nociceptive sedatedness and nociceptive system through the connective tissue. Sedation is someone feeling good or having a blissfulness, and information that's coming in is being sensed by your ethmoid organ. What's north negative and what's south positive, where a setting is more gyroscopic force. You've got this multiple thought, which could be, and you have this elements which is helping you track, and given whatever machismo that somebody has, it's really allowing you to navigate where you're doing what you're doing more in a straight line, you see. So you're looking at a deeper conditioning where the vestibular sense is controlling balance and its connectedness where the brain is and its differential cranial nerve. So correcting the ethmoidal nerve conditioning is very important. Of course, it really should be where spatial orientation is. You've got a connection, of course, here, a great connection where the ethmoid nerve is and the vestibular-cochlear nerve. And this is where the ethmoid region also is, and all of this is within a region of itself and having lodestone crystal, all very highly magnetic and generally associated with what's a primary function that's being spoken here, which is beyond the sense of smell. It's a sensation that really is coming about because of the ethmoid organ in the nasal cavity. And so this endogenous opiates, which are feeling good, and endorphins and enkephalins are being released, and these are the things which is helping you regulate pain and giving you pleasure. Also, look, you've got short-chain amino acid, which is known as peptide. It's not a fully sized sort of protein per se yet, which protein could be large, complex molecules, where long-chain amino acid is. And the opiate is a chemical compound. Looking at this ever more sense is your aesthetic sense, because it can be felt and feeling of this. You see, it's the talking to your brain and cells connection. And so your opiates are acting as secondary nervous systems through the nociceptive sedation, and very small molecule like kinetin. It's not extremely small, but it's small. A molecular weight and size, of course, typical range where a small molecule is that you could look at. So kinetin is a cytokine growth factor, and it's beautiful because it's several factors where anti-aging effect is, and mature human leptin molecule also. It's composed of only 146 amino acids, so it's not too small, but it's the size range which is sensed more where membrane is. So you've got multifunctional cytokine and hormone leptin, which regulating balance where nutrient intake and energy expenditure is. Yeah. So you're looking at nutrient which is of its main target, and the organs and things, and leptin and things such like this, and the impact that this has on your hypothalamus and the brain, with regulating appetite and energy and balance, you see. So the septal pelliccidum is your body sensation of pleasure versus aversion, and it's a structure which is where it's got this two thin layers, this lamina, which is typically where if you start on dead food, you're starting to see that ever more fused over time, where dead food is, and even after your nativity, you've got a sense of this very beautiful, fine, very thin membrane, and it's a septal engagement, you see, where interest and pleasure is, you've got this gorgeous neurological inhibition of the amygdala and aversive system in whole brain functioning, which is something which shouldn't be this, you're starting to apply with the things that you're doing. Why not? You've got the septal origina, which connects you and your frontal cortex also, and all of this is regulating emotion, and it's saving all of us from just only having to inhibit fear or anxiety otherwise. And it's sort of two systems are separate from each other, very distinct, you see. So the septal is serving as a relay of limbic regulated emotion, and the amygdala is for the fear and anxiety. And so you've got this relay of limbic system pathway between pleasure and aversion. And pleasure and interest creates a whole brain functioning because it causes you to be accessing your frontal cortex, where aversion does the opposite. So you're looking at how facts get put in modulating brain rhythm, like epsilon wave, which you could learn about, lambda wave, and theta oscillation, which is essential where learning memory system is, and the modulatedness of your brain and the rhythm of your breath and things. You have epsilon and theta oscillation, which are gamma carriers, which is gorgeous. You've got this very fine vibration, and it's essential for learning and memory and behavior. So regulating this, you've got this tonus, yes? It's like the wind that comes along in a windsock at the airport. And the wind is the tonus through the windsock. And so the vestibular sense is sensing all of this and transmitting signal where the brain is triggering reflexive, maintained posture and orientatedness where your thought is and where your eye is focused on things, and where the influence is of what is the muscle tone and things. Okay. So it's a servo mechanism. The vestibular sense is like a gyroscopic stabilizer, which is an endolymphatic gravitational inertia device, which is equalizing tonus, where static and dynamic magnicity is. You've got this potential, you see, where nerve cell is, and this is your manageableness, where you are, where you have balance. Yes? Okay. So if we're thinking about the vestibular sense, you're talking about integration and signal traveling where the brainstem is and your cerebellum, and integrating all the sensory information. And so coordination that you have in your spatial relation and your ability to be able to have echolocation, which you do, and it's equilibrium where a tonus is, you can feel this. You've got something three-dimensional going on where sound is, you see. So the vestibular sense is a meta system over the top of this. It's the vestibular sense regulating your balance and your felt equilibrium. And it's beautiful that you've got this over the top of the other sensory motor complex, and where something could have been overloaded, it could emit a sense, you see. And this is where this is done. And so what should it be a reason that you've turned your internal dialogue off and polarized to that? Because you've got access more to the vestibular sense, to stop, start, redirect. So information relayed where your cerebellum is located at the back of the brain, and the front and the back are all connected more through the septal region of your brain. Through the left side of the hemisphere, connecting more to the front and the back of the brain fully than the right side, which is connected much more to the medial forebrain bundle, for internal Maloo. So all of these things are unique. So it's responsible, this system, for coordinating voluntary muscle movement and involuntary things going on there, and maintaining posture, and where balance is, you see? Yes. And the motor movement, language is patterned motor movement. Okay. And ideas is a noun and a verb. Okay. So it's what's imagined and what your body is able to feel. It feels the same way, you see. So your vestibular sense is either you're being associated towards something or you're dissociated away from something. And your whole body movement really is a mechanism. You can see this, yes. It's relaying substantial relation between where you've got a noun and a verb in your syntax, non-lexical reasoning. So listening into verbal and non-verbal language gives you a window into the internal matrix of the mind. And so it's describing how you or I could look into how the mind and the nervous system is expressing itself, which is what I did for some 19 years to come up with this instrument. And so major meta sense over the top of all other communication. And you're looking at non-verbal and verbal forms of language, and how is this reflecting more your sensory motor complex in the way that you're using things? You see, this networking, what you're enabled to be able to calibrate and start to cause things ever more on the outside to be now internal process. So you've got this ability to think, feel and interact where the world is. And if one's listening deeply, they could consider how the body's language is really telling you all, isn't it? It's hard for that not to be the case. Of course, it's your body language and your non-verbal, including gestures and facial expression. So tone of your voice also. Posture is evidence moving toward and away where your assidedness is of body movement. And all this could be seen. You could see the hemisphere that's active. You've got everything acting as an accessing cue, tuning into state-specific behaviour and helping you with this, you see. So bad vestibular usage is really what's bad behaviour is. Bad habit is bad vestibular usage. It's sort of implicit and explicit. What is it that in the way that you're using your vestibular sense, you could look over this, you see, and learn. There's an involuntary and therefore it's much more direct into a mode where wordlessness is, where a window is into this. So it's a reflection of one's internal neurology, you see. So easy it is. You could be smelling what something is, like the smell of a rat, for instance. And smell is something really direct, isn't it? It occupies quite a bit of cortex. So wit, where anything is, or one being woken at the wake and be aware forever, of course, understanding and interpreting everyone's body language is something. And that's something which couldn't you or me, like I, have had time to notice all this? It's sort of Asperger's, where it's not really like some song could have helped someone, but unspoken issues where feelings are, where somebody is more in uptime, you could be able to track ever more properly. You see, you could notice ever more behavioural pattern. And so where verbal language appears, where utterances, you've got non-verbal communication, and all of this is always on. It's always occurring as long as there are cues where it's being associated, where an empty centre is wrapped, and where the care is simple I am. So you've got this internal occupiedness where less aware someone could be of the surrounding because they've occupied inside instead. And so could you be thinking of a big time where many situations could have been ranging, and a normal psychological state is where some condition is requiring you to have perhaps suddenly safety alerted attention instead. And so internal chatter where things are, and the feelings of hearing, seeing, and this all going, is never turned on or off. So if that's the case, where are you? Which is this I, you see? So this is not the turn on or the off, but yet it's over the top of what all this is. So you're looking at how you're feeling, and and this which is real is is aware over the perception. So your thinking is only 50% of the time of doing something. Somebody might say, oh my God, I don't think so. where there's procrastinatedness and all sorts of things like this. So where whatever rewardedness was, where some paid attention is to the outside world, is who got personal power where this is, you see. It's really got because of your direction, and what's happening is your ability to be in balance, internal and external, where the vestibular sense is. And so it's the ability that you have easily, evermore now, to have navigated a straight path. And isn't this you retaining diabolical opposite sides of each other, where something is? It's possible, really, to have an inner standing. And so all feeling ever is some sensation which is coming through your ethmoid organ. And if you're feeling of passing information on like this, it's the vestibular sense which is directing. And so your sense of magnetic north is always present, and it's not you're not discord of it, where the ethmoid organ is allowing all of this to be always. And it's like, how do you hold on to an entrained thought while entertaining other thought? And simultaneously, at the same time, you've got the ethmoid organ providing a capacity to allow these streams and anchoring things more internally in space where this is. So degrees of the mucus filling the ethmoid organ, of course, is the cause of Asperger's a lot. You have a capacity to be able to have proper spiritual relation. Also, you could be really feeling good about yourself, and Pavlovian conditioning is most, you see, and also for aversion as well. So what are you looking at in the frontal cortex as you've got this, yes, or is that been shut down as a condition? So the vestibular sense where lack is there, mucus-filled ethmoid organ, all causes depersonalization and ever more dissociation from the outside world would have been. So referential index, where you're getting information from, internal or external, where's your orientation, internal or external, and you've got a balance where this is yet a lacked, you've got unbalanced sorts of behaviour. And so that could be corrected by the wiring in a new movement experience, having proper vestibular conditioning. Otherwise, you've got vestibular dysfunction. And it's incident to just Pavlovian conditioning like anything else, and derealization disorder. It's been causing a beloved perhaps in the past to have felt improper maybe, and to have felt themselves to have been detached perhaps, and that depersonalization where that was in the past, that you could have changed all of this now, you see, where the surroundings are triggering this more. So a state of derealization would have been, and that transience in the past would have been a thought or a feeling observed, and most of anyone just outside, always just their own body all the time, non-stop, and not correcting anything to have a flexibility. You've really got to great use more of your vestibular sense where you're correcting behaviour simply. And so your environment, how you are feeling or not, you see, this is like living. And you could have only had this, oh yeah, I'm living in a dream state. So it's the wrong use of the vestibular sense there. Somebody should book a session, half an hour session, you've got a result at programming where this is, would have been only a lack of proper balance and integration where you've used your sensory motor complex and learning how to be congruent. So usually being more associated, of course, you've got life. And so most acting, and it's beautiful, and this is available to you, it's your eye awareness and your perception of reality in eye awareness is where you don't really have any attachment. You've got perfect detachment and you've got a non-biased condition. So it's significant how altered this sort of internal dialogue could have been, maxing all of that out. It's like totally unwise if it is that you wouldn't have been taking yourself out and knowing that always would have been out of a picture, you see. And so it's otherwise what this is, it's more like beyond just, oh yeah, I'm going to go out to lunch or something. It's the causing of you to really be looking more inside where some degrees of mutism has been psychological mutism and selective restrictive violation. You've got various responses which internal stimuli can be corrected through the vestibular sense. You could be focused ever more what is real versus fictional. And so the ethmoid, coming back full circle here, is really your sense of magnicity pumped up. It gives you the ability to pump this up. It has a capacity to have attention and focus, and it clear away noise figuratively. You've got this happening, and a long-standing mucus diet, of course, what would be the point? So these, you've got three ways which are existing naturally, where you've got a heart's path in your response, and two of these ways are with agreement, and you can get everything through this. And it's the use of these two which you could practice. Otherwise, there's an aversive polarizedness and an unsteady habit, and it's not like you didn't mean to have been dishonest or that was just automatic for you, and it was just a serious getting into more your frontal cortex, which you can, where that would have been deficient in the past. Not using your ethmoid, which you can. Of course, what if it was mucus-filled, and so voice and things like that could be in not the note of G, but in the note of A, and minus. And I mean, I think it's pretty difficult to get up there, but that's where lots of people are, you see. Yeah, and it's sort of like a head sound. So what's pleasant is the use of your vestibular sense, and it's really not something backward installed, of course. You've got beautiful perceptual filters where you're looking at what's good and over time before, and it's more like who, what, when, where, and how. And who is before what, of course, and that's not missing where somebody's into when. So a content sorter really is really boring, of course, because they can't really hold any attention. A content sorter is really just a name, place, and time. It's like, wow. What do you do with that? So the ethmoid organ really is clogged with mucus, and it's got a quantified function which is proper for its otherwise disconnectedness from the world, which somebody would have had, and a feeling of ongoing disconnectedness from the world. And how do you have joy where this is? Your feeling would have been objective to be what wasn't real, and locatedness also where all sorts of changing sizes and things are and what have you. And so nothing steady. Be it the vestibular wiring induction is for the unseen movement and the efficiency, which is more hardwired, and feelings of where your surrounding is and what's real versus unreal, which is just dreamlike distance and very distorted. So the nasal mucus in hypercapnia, which is having breathed off all your carbon and wrong conditioning of movement expressed with the vestibular senses, it's really wrong shrinking all that's right, yeah, and magnifying everything that's messed up. It's like, wow, have you had a look at that? Your ethmoid could be blocked, and it's just a note of A and not G, so it's very backward stamping everything after that. Your vestibular sense is mostly where somebody could be regulating emotion and have this beautiful bell where things either goes off. You've got an internal dialogue that otherwise would have been, otherwise you've got the detachment from all that now, you see, and more stillness, silence, and transparency. So it's this eye which is watching over you where the world is, and a glass barrier isn't separating you, you see. One is more eyewear. So your awareness of being an eye is over perception, not perception itself. And it's using the vestibular sense that's wrong, that would have gone on where it just became more mucus-filled. And so how about your ethmoid organ also? So it's a feltness of some forceness where tapes could have been or whatever in yourself, and having had to have listened and just intentional. But what deficiencies would have been where that was, and its relatedness to be a model of the outside world. It's a feeling of a strangeness where that world is, for one of depersonalizedness, where involvedness of some detachment, where somewhere was oneself was. And so what's the body in your own ongoingness, meditativeness, you see, feeling? Is this what we're talking about, where you're focused on what the experiences you could have? Is this your ethmoid function? Yes, and your ultradian circadian rhythms, which release more human growth hormone? Otherwise, how does that happen? To have thrived. And so if you're looking at the ethmoid organ, you don't want that to have been blocked, of course. You want it flowing and not damaged, where triggeredness is more like what we're talking about, of some derealization, and that's not psychosis. It's just a permanent offered condition of selective restrictive violations going on, yet anything but programming, that's all. So you really shared some similarity, which maybe is an eye-aware. You have some sandpaper or a beautiful emery center, and so what's wrapped where care is, you see, is an altered reality where your perception is in eye awareness. You've got this key difference that's going on where a beloved would have been only in a state of derealization, and their feelings of what's unreal and the symptoms of that being some actualness where their world is. And so that world of someone's world where that was a dissociated, lacked vestibular integration and paranoid and aversive and inner dialogue, usually negative syntax, non-verbals and verbal expression, worry, aversion, what's wrong every time somebody talks. So looking at what is polarization, where outbursts are like that, where psychotic episodes could have been, which is lacked of some inner and outer world, and the distinction between things, you've got insight where dopamine surges could have been just going on for somebody. So it's lacked ethmoid function, yes it is. It's how is your vestibular programmed, or is it off the chart? And no balance is. Delusion, hallucination, and lack proper boundary, where things are, is what you're believing, and it's not using proper influence, perhaps. Yep. What's the recognition, honest, of ethmoid dysfunction? Yes? Well, I think first you'd say that it's a note that's not in the note of G whatsoever. It's way up there in the note. Oh, hey! Okay. So your voice would be very fast-clipped, yes, forceful, aversive, loud, blaring, and the modal operators of chosen would have been about necessity, like don't want, can't, should, try, but, must, only, always, never. And so the style of the response would have been polarization, and it would have been pretty poor for you to have got any agreement. So it's lacked awareness and how to gain rapport, you see. Otherwise it's a lost friendship, you see, very fast. But your voice is general, where you've got more rhythm and resonance, or it's flat and hard, and it's only sorting information for content like name, place and time, which is boring. So if you're hard-pressed where memory is, you can't pass that on for sure, or yeah, same with experience. It's really totally not possible. You have to be focused on more something structural. So if you mention behaviour, if, I'm really immature, I'm going to make that personal. If you say anything about behaviour, I'm going to think about, wow, that's my identity, which is not, of course. And otherwise, you're talking about something and I just attach my identity to that. If it's negative or whatever, it's like, that's me, which it isn't. And you're allowing a polarizedness, not even knowing where yourself is looking and associated to things. Isn't it your reasoning with the vestibular sense in your piggyback frequency waves and all this, which we'll talk about in another program, but your functional ethmoid organ and how all of that could be filled with mucus, and where's resonance and the effect that that's having on things, which we should have a program about. It's the dangers more than ionized radiation. Okay. So that polarizedness and the dissociatedness and the control freak things, it's like if I'm a control freak, how I would be controlling things is, I'm not going to be around, or, wow, I'm going to be on strike. And other things would be wherever I am asked about something, I'm so distracted because I'll be just talking about the colour of my socks or, having hung something to dry. It's just ridiculous. But, it's not anything what I would or could do. So the distractedness where things are could be very big. It could be just a fidgety self and lack of self, of having any order and not really having any balance where referential information is or your orientation. So one could have been stuck and not too fluid, your orientation, you see. And, wow, if you're looking at me and I'm a bit of a ditz, you go, gee, this bloke's it's useless. He doesn't have any partnering skills whatsoever, you see, and nothing, can't self-initiate anything. Wow, and what about really how excellent you are where your family is and team skill and things. So somebody couldn't be trying too hard not to be controlling. And you just see them always totally showing up and ripping into everyone else and rallying to be little, and leave messages like, "Oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that," but what? Or I'm going to eat and I'm going to go do this or something. It's like, wow, but what about anything else? And so one's lackness, where basicness is conscientiousness, you see. If you could see, Lukey, the conscientiousness is where someone's focusing and remembers, I'm going to be doing these things tomorrow, or they have something which they've planned, and so something is set and it's a way for them to do something. And so attention ever more, right? And the deference that someone could have had, like, I'm trying to relieve and to get some comfort from something, and that's deference. So if I would have been stuck where that was, where my head was, and I would have been woken up, it would have been just, gee, what's wrong? Or, wow, I don't want to know. Or, wow, who's to blame? And so those three ways could be relieving stress, but, wow, not really. So why not be in a new mindset? There's a great book about this called Jubb's Little Red Book. So stage selected specific sort of, could you notice and have the pattern to pick up what aversiveness is? Yes. Okay. So it's lacked where anything would have been directed, your hemisphere synchrony and your integration where things are, and your beautiful non-lexical intelligence would be talking about here, and it's precognitive coming to be installed ever more, and the syntax that you have, you've got more of this rational continuum in consciousness, and it's this which is your I-aware state. And if you are looking over all the places where you've left yourself behind, you've got this shoreless ocean behind the back of your nose, Lukey. So it's shoreless. It's being in this moment, you're in this moment forever, and this is your nativity. It's really an eye-awareness where you're witnessing this from functionalness It's functional plastic. You're flexible. You've really got this vestibular sense perfect. It's a cadre about what's selective and restrictive otherwise, and some violation going on. A selective restrictive violation is really not non-lexical and lexical sorts of behaviour where semantic and syntactical sorts of errors always are. And that's selective, you see. It's state-specific. And when that's occurring, there could be psychological mutism and all sorts of behaviour, polarised, non-inclusiveness, and everything necessity-framed, which is being used. And so where your non-verbal behaviour is, you've really got this word editing, haven't you? But could that be compatible or not? What's the congruence? So you've got two types of incongruence, of course. On the one hand, you've really got a simultaneous, like as I'm talking, I'm sort of saying yes but shaking my head no, or like you hear me saying I'm going to go do something and all of a sudden you see me laying back on things, you see. So it's the voice and body posture and things. What's nice and smooth, mellow, resonant, rich, got a deep JC content, articulation, enunciation. You've got a clear tone. It's very dynamic and expressive, isn't it? So pleasantry, a voice, it really does avoid monotony. It's smooth, and your mouth, where it is fluid, and you've got a voice where flowing effortlessly. It's so you're doing things without strain, and so otherwise whatever would be hoarse or coarse is not like fine porcelain, yet a manoeuvring around the stress where somebody is, and you're not having a proper breath control. Well, that could have been supported where someone's relaxed more now, you see, where your vocal instrument is, and you're just focused on what's the note that you're in. So you've got approachable tone, it's soft, slightly slurred, it's relaxed, very sincere, sort of authentic, it's strain-free delivery, you see. You're communicating to someone like you're talking to people. You're giving you this, I want you to hear this, and wouldn't it be that I could cause you to feel, yeah, this is trustworthy, or otherwise loud, aggressive. So what's the genuine inner smile that someone has where your voice is even more likeableness to listeners where you're talking, you see, and your proper breath support where you are right now, yeah, and your vocal freedom. How about thinking about this just a bit, eh? And get rid of the tension where the jaw's been and relax your throat, so your chest and all of that doesn't negatively impact what the tone is. So several characteristics really is widely attractive, where soothiveness is nobody's going to say your ethmoid organ, your vestibular sense, the upper chambers, the nasal condition, your dental cavity or your epiglottis are three areas which are primary resonating chamber. So oral cavity, the nasal cavity, and guttural, you've got a foldedness where air is, and lungs and everything in the air is passing through the vocal fold where vibratedness is, and so producing this buzzing sound. Okay. So keep in mind echolocation. Yeah. You've got resonant chambers. See, that bickering, that sound, whatever it's made, the echolocation is amplified, and it modifies by the selective listenness to hear this. Initially, the sound could be maybe not too recognizable, but your voice and others could suddenly, you could start to be woken up more behind what's behind the voice. It's quite dutiful, of course, that mucus where the oral nasal ethmoid organ is, only a head sound and a note of A would have been, and no control over any other chakra and cavity, and vice versa. And so the shape that you have, that you can hear the echolocation behind this. you can hear an altered ethmoid organ, if that was, and what is the nasal space where it's alongside where the nerves all fitting where muscle is, and how does your diet and whole brain functioning and your noted body reading, for instance, that you might select to do, is a style which you could get more information about your own self and what effect this is on resonance, where sound is, for instance, itself. So stone and the impact of that, where percussion is. So it really is for us to consider what's the magnetic design, where a gene is. You've got cryptochrome, of course. You've got this magnetic photoreceptive conditioning. You've got molecule regulating entrainment, where light is, the circadian clock, and ultradian, where the ethmoid organ is. It's been a great program for us to talk a bit today about the magnetic sensitivity, even where eyes and other tissue is. You've got a magnoreceptivity where cytochrome is, and you could really see how beautiful integrated where your central nervous system is of ultradian circadian cycles, which is an oscillation, and nerve and cell is responsive to. So controlling, this magno-photo morphogenic condition which we have, your response to blue or ultraviolet light, for instance, and cytochrome, where blue light receptors are regulating cellular conditioning, where growth is in biology and botany. It's light colloid transmutation in your intestine and enzymatic growth and cellular development, and all of this is very core components, in this central clock that the ethmoid organ is picking up the micropulsations that's coming through the crust of the earth, setting things. So couldn't we be thinking about ease and what is the dis-ease and electromagnetic property where this is, and what the suppression could have been with circadian clock protein? Cytochrome 2 is where it's shown to be connected to osteoarthritis and human Cry1 variants and associated with attention deficit and hyperactive disorder. I mean, it's another topic for us to go on with in some other place, but your circadian cryptochrome is tumorigenic, factoring. It's, what is the rhythm or arrhythmical modulation of your DNA repair and things? Okay. It's our species, of course. We've got, just like migratory animals, bird, fish, others, all have cryptochrome in their body, and like we do, where our eyes are even. The idea of our human magnoreceptivity really has been existed for quite some time, and our understanding about this. Anyway, I hope we've had a great show today, Lukey. Anyway, look forward to, we'll catch up to each other in a future show. Love you, mate, and love to everybody.